Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about why eccentric reps or negative reps can be a valuable tool, but they are overrated. And they're overrated in the sense of they're not this magical growth stimulating tool that are necessary for maximum muscle growth. And in some cases, slower eccentrics can slow down recovery. They can cause higher injury rates, things like that. There are exercises where slow eccentrics are actually dangerous. They're dangerous and have the high chance of hurting you in the long term. Now, what people need to understand when they look at all the scientific literature, and they've done studies out there over the years, and they have found that eccentric reps produce muscle growth. And they produce muscle growth on their own, meaning when the same amount of work has been done, where they put people on a machine that either raises or lowers the weight so that they only do the concentric or the eccentric rep, what they have usually found is that both concentric and eccentric only reps stimulate muscle growth, right? They stimulate muscle growth. When both are done together, they stimulate quite a bit more muscle growth. Now, what needs to be understood here is that that is not with relative workloads. Meaning, if you were to train at rate of perceived exertion 9 out of 10, and you did concentric only or eccentric only reps, they're actually going to produce relatively similar hypertrophy, particularly if you start equalizing volume, to doing both parts of the rep. They're not necessary for muscle growth. Neither the concentric nor the eccentric is necessary. Either one, if volume is high enough, can stimulate maximum muscle growth. All right, and that needs to be understood. However, it's simply not convenient on a lot of exercises to do so, and then you have time constraints. And what I mean there is, if you are going to come into the gym and do 3 sets of 8, if you only did the concentric rep or the eccentric rep, you probably are going to need more total sets, because in other words, you're not going to be able to go much heavier for 8 reps if you do the concentric only. In other words, let's say your deadlift. Let's say you can do 8 reps up and down with 400 pounds, right? If you just turn loose at the top to get to 8 reps, you're probably only going to be able to do about 410, 420, because you do lose energy doing the eccentric. So to normalize the workload, that's what you're going to have to do. And what ultimately ends up happening is that to get the same amount of workload, you end up needing to do more total sets. So in other words, you might need 4 sets instead of 3 to stimulate the same amount of muscle growth. So the way to look at that is, if your goal is to stimulate maximum muscle growth and you want to get out of the gym quickly, doing the full range of motion, both the concentric and eccentric portion of the rep, meaning both the raising and the lowering, is going to be the quickest way to get out of the gym. It's going to be the most efficient use of your time for the purpose of hypertrophy, right? So when you look at it from that perspective, it makes sense. It's like we can argue all day long, and I think we can present a strong case that concentric only training can produce maximum hypertrophy. But are you going to have to work out 10 minutes longer? Is your workout going to be an hour instead of 45 minutes trying to get the same amount of growth stimulation? And for a lot of people that matters. That does matter. So if you're looking at a time economy perspective, it makes sense to go ahead and do the eccentric rep, particularly when you see that set per set it produces more growth. But you have to remember, you can get the same muscle growth just by doing more work. Right, and that's the take-home that needs to be understood. Now, when we get into certain exercises, you need to also understand that eccentric loading actually has downsides, meaning the slower you go on eccentric reps, the more soreness you get, and eccentric loading is actually slightly harder to recover from. It produces more DOMS, it produces more fatigue. So when you can start minimizing eccentrics, recovery becomes easier. It becomes easier and faster, and you get less sore. Usually the soreness you get from training, the bulk of it does come from the eccentric portion of the rep, because of the micro tearing it causes in the connective tissue between the muscle fibers and on the ends of the muscle fibers. That's where that soreness comes from. And again, it's harder to recover from. And then we get to the issue of specificity of training. For most strength purposes, the argument can be made that the concentric portion of the rep is more valuable, because you're usually pushing or pulling against something rather than lowering in any sort of sports application or in most strength sports or anything else. So the argument could be made that if a person doesn't mind spending a hair more time in the gym, there are a lot of exercises that can benefit from you doing concentric only training with either no eccentric or a relatively fast eccentric, meaning you could either turn loose at the top or you could just let the weight drop fairly quickly without fully losing control. And you'll find that you can still stimulate maximum muscle growth, but you get a slightly better performance bias on the concentric. In other words, you might get better at your deadlifting slightly faster. You might get better at a Pendlay row slightly faster by doing this. Because ultimately that's what you're doing. Because if you need to perform one of these lifts maximally, you're usually not as worried about being able to control your weight on the way down, because we're stronger on the eccentric portion of the weight. Meaning, in other words, if you can successfully do even a 1 rep max and lift a weight, you can usually control it on the way back down, even if it was a max. Again, barring a few situations where it wouldn't be. So when you look at it from that perspective, if your goal is purely performance and power, then focusing more on concentric reps makes a lot of sense, particularly when you realize that you can recover slightly faster from them. So there is also the point to be made for concentric only training. So people need to understand, we're talking about tools in a toolbox. Eccentric reps are a tool in the toolbox. They're not a requirement, and there are situations in which they are advantageous, such as, again, stimulating muscle growth and getting out of the gym 10 minutes quicker, right? But people need to remember, super slow eccentrics have never been found to produce more muscle growth. Like a 1 second rep on the way down seems to stimulate the maximum growth you get out of an eccentric rep. These 4, 5, 6 second eccentrics do not stimulate more growth, but they do make you more sore. So back to the other point, there are merits to concentric only training. Now, when it comes to injury in, this is exercise specific. People need to remember there are exercises where you have to perform the eccentric rep to perform the lift safely. And there are exercises where really slow eccentrics actually can hurt you. Not only they beat up recovery, but they can hurt you quite a bit, and they're actually risky. And I get asked this a lot. I do get people who actually come in and notice that my eccentric reps are pretty fast on my deadlift. They're like, oh my God, you're going to hurt yourself. Why are you doing that? And that's because the deadlift is an exercise in which the slow eccentric actually is more injury prone. So by me lowering it fairly quickly, I'm actually reducing my chance of injury. And that's the reason I do that, for example. That's the reason a lot of coaches coach the deadlift that way. Controlling the rep on the way down is actually an easy way to strain your lower back. And it also, because again, slow eccentrics cause extra fatigue, they're harder to recover from, they cause soreness. It's a good way to really fatigue your lower back and not be able to train it again very soon. It's a problem on the deadlift. The deadlift is intended to be a concentric based exercise. So actually the safest way to get the most results out of a deadlift is to either completely turn loose at the top and let the bar drop. Not always safe in all gyms and all environments. You have to have the right plates to do this safely. You have to have the right sort of flooring to do this without damaging stuff. That's technically the safest way to do it. But anyone who wants to compete in powerlifting, you do have to hold onto the bar on the way down. So if you're going to be competitive in, say, powerlifting, you're going to need to train the other way so that you don't lock in a bad motor pattern. But that's a perfect example of a lift that the eccentric rep can actually really cause recovery issues, and it can cause higher injury rates. It's better to let it drop fairly quick and then reset on each rep. The eccentric reps are just too difficult to recover from on that exercise. Now, there are other exercises like the bench press to where if you were to do that, you're at a higher injury risk, because if you just dive bomb the weight into your chest or turn it loose at the top, or let it drop really, really fast and you hit yourself in the chest with 350, 400 pounds, all right, this is not good either. This is also an injury risk situation. So when you're looking at exercises, it starts to become important to say, okay, do I need an eccentric rep here? How important is it? And is it safer for me to not control an eccentric very much, or is it safer for me to control an eccentric? And that's what you have to have, a little bit of common sense when looking at different exercises and determining this. So at the end of the day, you've got to remember, as I've already said, the eccentric component of a rep is a tool in your toolbox. It has its uses, it has its drawbacks, it has things it's good for, it has things it's bad for. And like with anything else in training, learning to use those tools appropriately, and when that tool is the best tool for the job, is how you make the best progress. That's the way we need to be with it. Just be intelligent about it. Use some common sense with it. Think things through. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.